whichever way you go, it's a hard option to go off-grid. People think it's ideal and this is what I want to do. But you've either got to have a big lump sum of money behind you to enable you to do it immediately, or it's something you have to work slowly towards, or there are people that have this situation forced upon them and actually make the best of it. So there's a number of ways you can come at it. But I think what needs to happen is people need to be together in communities, support one another, and it's this idea of gradually moving towards being off-grid. Just being more eco-friendly, being more in touch with nature. They're just average people in the middle ground, if you like. And the only way that's going to happen is to work together as communities, find land where this can actually happen, work together. Old-fashioned way of doing it. I was aware this piece of land was here, very derelict, and I kept on looking at it and nothing was happening. So I approached the hospital and said, could I rent the land off of them? And their immediate reaction was no. So it's like, well, can I use the land in any way, shape or form? No. So basically I harassed them until one of their managers phoned me up and said, what is it exactly you're trying to do? And I explained, you know, my concept of actually having an area working with young people, working with people with mental health. And he actually said to me, you can't just approach me like that. So I said, well, what do you want? He said, a business plan. Well, he had one the next day. Didn't hear anything for 6 months, and then he phoned me up quite late on a Thursday evening and said, it's just gone in front of the board of directors and they've given it the go-ahead. Basically, this place was up and running. We were having a lot of groups down here, from young people to long-term unemployed, people with long-term mental health issues. I actually believe it was a benefit to all those that were involved. But the long and the short of it was the whole project really hinged on myself. That I was diagnosed with cancer, and basically the project shut down for the majority of 2 years, and it's only now that we're looking at, as I say, bringing it up from the ashes yet again, but this time in a different form. I think it has to be a growing project. So priorities at the moment are to get the glass houses up and running, just general tidy up, blitz it and start again, but this time as a growing project, as a teaching area for off-grid type things, maybe go back to a few of the old traditions. So yeah, there's potential there to do quite a bit, really. We've lost so many skills, things that maybe I took for granted as a kid. Today's generation, there's been emphasis on perhaps learning technology. You know, school curriculums have changed and they don't allow for I mean, for example, when I was at school, we did a botany course, which included identification of local plants. You know, I have to point out plants to my kids and say, this is what they are, and I'm sure a lot of people don't actually do that. So they haven't even got a clue about the environment they're living in, let alone an appreciation of the environment and how it can be used in a friendly way, but to their benefit. It would be nice to offer training and a learning experience, maybe a cooperative learning experience. It's not all about being taught or teaching, it's learning from one another. We could cabin build here, yeah, outdoor cooking, foraging. You've got the woods a stone's throw from here, you've got the beach a stone's throw from here, so there's potential to actually go off, forage, come back here and cook up whatever has been gathered that day. Sometimes people haven't got any clue of how to cook outdoors, so that's something that can be taught again, how to build a safe fire and a safe environment for a fire. I know it sounds a bit basic, but sometimes people need to be shown the best way to do things. And also there's the potential for learning additional skills, sort of traditional skills like dry stone walling, hurdle making, hedge laying. They're traditional skills if you're living off grid that are actually helpful to have, and they're not readily taught these days. The trouble is, I take some of these skills as I think they're so basic and everybody knows them and nobody would possibly want to learn them. And then you start talking to people and you realise they actually don't know and need to be taught. And it's skills they've not learnt when they were younger. And I don't know whether it's just through a lack of opportunity or never being taught by parents or not valuing those skills when they were younger. I don't know, a combination of the whole lot. But really very basic skills people do not know and do not understand and actually need to be taught. I'd like to see this place being used on a regular basis. I'd like to see sort of fairly small groups, maybe 10, 12, 14 people down here of a weekend, spending the weekend down here. Just seeing this community, tight-knit little groups working together in cooperation, basically. All with the same aspiration, sharing that aspiration, helping each other. Without it, not a lot happens. You've got to have cooperation, you've got to have like-minded people working together. Otherwise, you might as well be banging your head against a brick wall most of the time. People do know how to handle, like the authorities, like the local council. They do know what their preferences and, certain councillors might be in favour of eco-homes and others can't see the value in it at all, and they know these things, and those little bits of information can make a difference to what individuals are trying to do. It's not easy, it's doable. A lot of land comes with covenants that stop you doing all sorts, but there are ways around it. But it's being aware and exchanging that information between people again, and this is the easiest way to do it. Are you aware that there's this ruling about to come out in government that will allow us to do, and it's this transfer of information that's not readily available. I mean, you could argue freedom of information, but it's actually knowing the information's there in the first place before you can even bother asking for it. Yeah, I think off-grid training is it's an idea, and this is an area which groups of people can come together. It's cooperative learning, it's intergenerational learning, and it's having the instructors available to teach the off-grid skills that everybody's going to need in the future. I think a lot of things have happened. There's been a lot of emphasis recently on mental health. Just being outside, vitamin D from the sun, just being in contact with nature, being in a quiet environment where you can actually worry about, I suppose you'd call it mindfulness, actually being aware of your surroundings, being in the here and now and appreciating what you're seeing in front of you. We're so busy that we miss so much, and if you can just be still and quiet for a little while and observe what's around you, actually you begin to appreciate what we've got and the potential. It definitely does change your life, and it's hard you don't see it happening at the time, but you go through, it's traumatic really. You go through chemo, your operation, your radiation therapy, and you think, that's it, I've beaten it, I'm through it. And then suddenly you realise, actually, this is an ongoing thing. There's a potential for it to return. You need ongoing treatment. And it's like, I thought it was all over, but actually I'm still in the middle of it and I'm still having to keep going. And that makes you stop and reevaluate your life and what you actually want out of life, what you actually need. And actually you start to focus your attention on yourself. And if I'm outdoors in a nice calm environment, I relax. It actually does me good. It's just good for your mental health and well-being. I don't know. It's all of a sudden become a fashionable thing, almost. Whether it's this real desire to connect back with the earth and nature, or maybe a combination of both. But you've got a sort of real increase in vegetarianism, veganism, people wanting to live off-grid, people wanting eco-housing. And I think basically they are looking forward for themselves and for future generations. We can't carry on using the earth as we are, it can't continue. Something's got to give, something's got to improve. We've got to be more considerate of our environment. We're increasing in numbers and we just cannot carry on the way we're going. It just can't happen.